Baba Vanga's end of 2025 prophecy revealed prayer for peace. There's a feeling in the air, isn't there? In these late afternoons of 2025, as the world seems to hold its collective breath, an old story has begun to find its way back into our conversations. It comes not as a shout, but as a whisper from the distant past, telling of a prophecy about what some have called humanity's darkest trial. The question we must ask ourselves is, why now? With the constant noise of our modern world, the 24-hour news cycles, the endless notifications on our screens, why does a quiet murmur from a century ago echo so loudly in our hearts today? Let's be honest with ourselves. The ground beneath our feet feels a little less steady than it used to. The headlines alone are enough to make anyone feel unsettled. We see the simmering tensions in Eastern Europe that never quite cooled, the uneasy watch in the waters of the South China Sea. We feel it in the air itself, the summers that seem to break heat records as a matter of course, the storms that follow paths they never used to, leaving us to wonder what comes next. And we certainly feel it in our wallets, that persistent pinch at the grocery store, the talk of supply chains and inflation that has become the constant background noise of our lives. It is in this restless world that the old prophecy finds fertile ground. But perhaps its resurgence has less to do with predicting the future and more to do with making sense of our present. Perhaps the reason we are drawn to this story isn't about what's to come, but about a deep, quiet longing that we all share, a longing for a sense of peace right here and right now. And maybe, just maybe, that is where the real answer lies. The woman behind the whisper. So, who was the woman behind this whisper? To understand the echo, we must first understand the voice. The name that the world knows is Baba Vanga, which simply means Grandmother Vanga, but she was born Vangelia Gushtarova, a name as ordinary as any other, in the year 1911. Her life began in Strumica, a town that was then part of the vast and fading Ottoman Empire, a place that would soon be tossed by the winds of the Balkan Wars. From her very first breath, her life was set against a backdrop of profound change and uncertainty. For the first 12 years of her life, she was, by all accounts, a normal child. But then came the day that legend holds would forever alter her destiny. The story, passed down through generations, is a tragic one. A powerful, freakish storm, some have described it as a tornado, swept through her village. It said the wind lifted the young Vangelia into the air and threw her into a nearby field. She was found days later, terrified and in pain. Her eyes were sealed shut, caked with a thick layer of sand and dust. Despite medical efforts, her sight could not be saved. She was left in total darkness. This singular event stands as the tragic heart of her story, and it is from this point that the biography of the young girl ends and the legend of the seer begins. Those who believe in her gift say that what she lost in one world, she gained in another. The loss of her physical sight, it is told, opened a door to a different kind of vision, an inner sight that could perceive events beyond the normal scope of time and space. To truly understand her rise to fame, we have to see her not in a vacuum, but as a product of her turbulent times. Imagine living through the Bulgaria of the 20th century. Her life spanned 2 world wars, the rise of a monarchy, its fall, and the long, cold decades of communist rule. In a world where official information was controlled, where personal freedoms were limited, and where the future was dictated by forces far beyond the control of the average person, people were desperate for a different kind of guidance. They sought solace and answers, not from the state, but from sources that felt more ancient and more authentic. In this climate, Vanga's reputation grew. It started small, with neighbors seeking advice on lost items or family troubles. But word of her uncanny insights spread, traveling from village to town, and eventually, across the entire country and beyond. People from all walks of life, farmers, workers, intellectuals, and even, it is rumored, high-ranking government officials made the journey to her small, modest house in the town of Petrick. Now, here we must pause and introduce a crucial, undeniable fact, one that is essential to understanding her legacy. Baba Vanga was either illiterate or semi-literate. She did not keep journals. She did not write down her prophecies. She left behind no written record of her own words. Everything we think we know about her predictions comes to us second-hand. These accounts were passed on by word of mouth or jotted down by the countless visitors who sat with her over the decades. This is not a small detail. It is the very lens through which we must view her story. Think of it like a message whispered from one person to the next in a long line. By the time it reaches the end, how much of the original message remains intact and how much has been colored by memory, interpretation, or even invention? Those who met her often described a consistent ritual. They would be asked to bring a sugar cube to hold it in their hand overnight before meeting her. It was said that this small, sweet object acted as a crystal, absorbing the story of a person's life. Visitors often recounted that upon entering her room, she would begin speaking about their lives with startling accuracy, sometimes in a voice that didn't quite seem her own, as if she were in a trance-like state, channeling information from an unseen source. But whether you see her as a divinely gifted mystic or a folk healer with a profound intuition, one thing is clear: she was not a distant, all-powerful oracle. She was a woman, forged by immense personal tragedy and shaped by the deep-seated hopes and fears of her people, living through one of the most tumultuous centuries in human history. It is this very human story that gives the whisper from the past its enduring power. The Darkest Trial, Deconstructing the 2025 Vision. So, with this understanding of the woman and the nature of her spoken prophecies, let's turn our attention to the specific vision that has echoed into our time, the prophecy for the end of 2025. This isn't just one single prediction, but a collection of phrases and warnings that have been pieced together over time from various accounts. As we look at them, our goal isn't to prove or disprove them, but simply to understand them, to hold them up to the light and see what shapes they cast. The central pillar of this prophecy is the phrase that gives us pause, the warning of humanity's darkest trial. It's a powerful, foreboding statement. But what does it actually mean? The word trial itself is interesting. It doesn't necessarily mean a disaster or an apocalypse. A trial can be a test, a period of hardship that forces a judgment or a decision. It suggests a crossroads, a moment of profound challenge where the outcome is not yet decided. It implies we are not just passive victims of fate, but active participants in this test. This core idea is often accompanied by two other cryptic, highly visual phrases that have captured the public imagination. The first is the haunting image of a great silence after a cry. This is the kind of poetic, ambiguous language that is the hallmark of prophecy. A cry could be anything: the cry of war, the cry of nature in pain, the collective cry of a suffering humanity. The silence that follows is just as open to interpretation. Does it mean the literal silence of annihilation, the quiet that follows a catastrophic event where there is nothing left to say? Or could it be a different kind of silence? Perhaps it's the silence of awe, after a revelation so profound it leaves the world speechless. Or maybe it's a more sinister silence, the silence of censorship, the silence of a world where truth is suppressed, or the profound inner silence of people who have lost connection with one another, living side by side in quiet desperation. The second powerful image is the idea that millions will vanish, as if swallowed by the night. Of all the elements of this prophecy, this is perhaps the most chilling and the most debated. The most immediate interpretation, of course, points to a massive loss of life. In a world acutely aware of the possibilities of modern warfare, nuclear threats, or a fast-spreading pandemic, this interpretation is understandable. The swallowing by night could be a metaphor for the suddenness and totality of such a catastrophe. But again, if we approach this as a text to be analyzed rather than a headline to be feared, other meanings emerge. Could vanishing be a metaphor for something other than death? In an age of unprecedented displacement, could it refer to the millions of refugees forced from their homes by conflict or climate change, vanishing from their homelands and becoming statistics in a global crisis? Or could it be a more technological or social vanishing? In a world increasingly lived through digital avatars and online personas, perhaps it speaks to a loss of true identity, millions of people vanishing into a virtual reality, disconnected from the physical world. Some have even offered more esoteric interpretations, suggesting a spiritual event, a great shift in consciousness where people vanish from one state of being to another. Because these phrases are so open, they have naturally given rise to several major schools of thought about what this darkest trial might actually be. The most common interpretation centers on the idea of a massive global conflict. Given Baba Vanga's life experience, surrounded by the echoes of world wars and the constant tension of the Cold War, it's not surprising that conflict would be a recurring theme in her visions. Proponents of this view point to her other alleged prophecies about Europe becoming a wasteland or the use of devastating new weapons. They see the cry as the sound of battle and the silence as the grim aftermath. Another prominent interpretation points not to humanity's actions, but to nature itself. This view suggests the darkest trial could be a cataclysmic environmental event. The cry could be the sound of the earth itself, the roar of a supervolcano, the shattering of an ice shelf, the fury of a megastorm. The vanishing of millions could be the result of a sudden sea level rise swallowing coastal cities or a widespread famine caused by abrupt climate shifts. This interpretation resonates strongly with many today, as we watch scientific warnings about environmental tipping points become more urgent with each passing year. Finally, there's a third, more introspective interpretation. This one suggests that the trial is not a physical event at all, but a profound spiritual or moral crisis. In this view, the cry is the cry of a humanity that has lost its way, a cry of division, hatred, and fear. The great silence that follows could be the consequence of this spiritual decay, a world where empathy and compassion have gone silent. The vanishing of millions might then refer to people losing their humanity, becoming empty shells devoid of purpose and connection. This interpretation sees the prophecy not as a warning about external destruction, but about an internal collapse. As we lay these interpretations side by side, what becomes clear is that the power of this prophecy lies not in its specificity, but in its profound ambiguity. It acts like a vessel, a container into which we can pour our deepest contemporary anxieties. Whether your greatest fear is war, ecological collapse, or social decay, you can find a reflection of it in these words. And this is precisely why it's so important to deconstruct it, to separate what was allegedly said from the layers of meaning we have since added. By doing so, we move from a place of passive fear to one of active inquiry, which is a far more powerful place to be. Why these words haunt us in 2025. And so, we arrive at the heart of the matter. After exploring the woman and deconstructing her words, we are left with the most important question of all. Why do these particular phrases, spoken by a blind woman in a small Bulgarian village decades ago, hold such power over us, right here, in 2025? The answer, I believe, is both simple and profound. Baba Vanga's prophecy is not a window looking out into the future, it is a mirror, and the image it reflects back at us is the anxious face of our own time. The words haunt us not because they foretell a destiny we cannot avoid, but because they so perfectly articulate the fears we are already living with every single day. Let's take that mirror and look closely. Think about the warnings of rising conflicts and great wars. Do we truly need a prophecy to feel the tension in the world today? We see it in the reports from geopolitical analysts who speak of a new era of global polarization. We see nations, once allies, now viewing each other with suspicion. We read about the development of new kinds of weapons, autonomous drones, cyber warfare, hypersonic missiles, technologies that are advancing faster than our wisdom to control them. The abstract fear of a large-scale conflict feels less abstract than it did a generation ago. The prophecy doesn't create this fear, it simply gives it a name and a face. It takes the low, persistent hum of global anxiety that we all feel and amplifies it. Now, let's consider the premonitions of natural chaos of a world where the Earth itself cries out in pain. Look at the reality of our planet in 2025. We no longer need a seer to tell us that our climate is in turmoil. We have scientists armed with decades of data telling us the same thing. We have the reports from bodies like the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which speak in sober, factual language about tipping points, irreversible changes, and the urgent need for action. We experience it firsthand. We see the images of coastlines slowly being redrawn by rising seas. We feel the oppressive heat of summer heat waves that were once considered freak events but are now becoming the norm. We watch news reports of communities not in some distant future but right now being displaced by wildfires, floods, or droughts. The prophecy of a chaotic natural world doesn't sound like a mystical vision. It sounds like a summary of the evening news. And finally, let's hold the mirror up to that most unsettling phrase, the idea of millions vanishing. We've explored its possible meanings, but let's look at how it reflects our current reality. We are living through the largest refugee crisis in recorded history. Millions of people, driven from their homes by war, poverty, and climate change, have been forced to vanish from the lives they knew, becoming displaced persons searching for safety. Their stories, their histories, their identities are often reduced to a number, lost in the vastness of the crisis. But there is another, quieter kind of vanishing happening all around us. In our hyper-connected digital world, we are witnessing a crisis of profound disconnection. We have hundreds of friends online, yet studies show that feelings of loneliness are at an all-time high. We scroll through endless feeds of curated perfection, which can make our own real, messy lives feel inadequate, making us want to vanish from our own reality. We are losing the art of deep conversation, of being truly present with one another. In a very real way, people are vanishing from the public square, from their communities, and even from their own families, retreating into the isolating glow of a screen. The prophecy speaks of millions being swallowed by the night, and one could argue that the endless, sleepless night of the digital age is doing just that. This is the power of the mirror. It takes our fragmented, complex fears about politics, the environment, our society, our own sense of self, and reflects them back to us in one single, coherent, and terrifying image. We don't fear Baba Vanga's prophecy. We fear that her prophecy is simply telling us the truth about what we already see and feel. It gives us a framework, a mythic language, to discuss the unspoken anxieties that shape our lives. And recognizing this is incredibly important, because if it is a mirror, it means the image is not fixed. A reflection is not a destiny. A reflection shows you where you are, right now. And if you don't like what you see in the mirror, you don't try to break the mirror, you change what is being reflected. This realization shifts everything. It moves us from a position of passive dread to one of active awareness. and active awareness is the first step toward meaningful change. From prediction to preparation, a shift in perspective. So, here we are, standing before this mirror. We've seen the reflection. It shows us a world grappling with conflict, a planet in distress, and a society struggling with disconnection. The image is unsettling, there is no denying that. And the natural human instinct, when faced with such a reflection, is fear. It's the instinct to turn away, to perhaps even wish the mirror would shatter. But what if we chose a different response? What if the purpose of this prophecy, this mirror, was never to paralyze us with fear of the future? What if its true purpose was to awaken us to the power we hold in the present? This brings us to a crucial turning point, a fundamental shift in perspective. So, what should we do with this mirror? Do we simply stand here, mesmerized by our own fearful reflection, waiting for the image to become reality? Or do we use it for what mirrors are truly for? To see ourselves clearly, to recognize the smudges on our face, and to begin the gentle work of cleaning them. This is the shift from prediction to preparation. When we hear the word preparation, our minds often jump to the physical. We think of stocking up on supplies, creating emergency plans, building bunkers. And while there is a place for practical readiness, the kind of preparation we're talking about here is something deeper. The greatest challenges reflected in that mirror, the polarization, the anger, the despair, are not problems that can be solved with canned goods or batteries. They are sicknesses of the spirit, crises of the human heart. Therefore, the most effective preparation is not external, but internal. If the world outside is loud and chaotic, we must prepare by cultivating a quiet center within ourselves. If the dominant narrative is one of division and blame, we must prepare by nurturing the seeds of compassion and understanding in our own hearts. If the prevailing feeling is one of hopelessness, we must prepare by actively practicing gratitude and seeking out beauty, resilience, and goodness, which still exist in abundance all around us. This is the most profound form of readiness. It's building an inner shelter that no external storm can breach. It's developing a spiritual resilience that allows you to face an uncertain world, not with a clenched fist, but with an open heart. It's the understanding that while we may not be able to control the great geopolitical tides or reverse decades of climate change overnight, we have absolute sovereignty over our own inner world. We can choose our response. We can choose what we cultivate within ourselves. This isn't a passive or Pollyanna-ish approach. On the contrary, it is the most active and courageous stance one can take. It is the quiet refusal to let the chaos of the world become the chaos of your soul. It is the radical act of believing that a centered, compassionate, and clear-minded individual is the most powerful force for good in a troubled time. This internal preparation, this fortification of the spirit, is the foundation upon which everything else is built. It's what allows us to engage with the world's problems, not from a place of reactive fear, but from a place of grounded strength. And it is this very practice of building our inner shelter that leads us directly to the second part of our journey today, the simple yet powerful idea of a prayer for peace. We've traveled a long way together in this first part of our story. We began with a whisper from the past, examined the life of the woman who spoke it, and held the prophecy up not as a verdict, but as a mirror reflecting our own time. We've walked through this old story together, not to arrive at a simple answer, but to perhaps leave with deeper questions. And now, I would be honored to hear your voice in this echo. This prophecy, or more accurately, this mirror, what does it reflect in your own personal experience of the world today? When you look around, what do you see? And more importantly, amidst all the noise and the motion, where do you find your own sources of peace and strength? What are the small anchors that keep you steady in these shifting tides? Please, Take a moment and share your reflections in the comments below. There is no right or wrong answer. There is only your unique experience. And in times like these, sharing our stories is how we remind each other that we are not alone. Every story shared is a candle lit in a darkened room. Prayer for peace, Ni mine. The still point of the turning world. In the first part of our journey, we stood together and looked into the mirror that Baba Vanga's prophecy holds up to our world. We saw in it the reflection of our very real, very modern anxieties. And that feeling of unease that comes from looking at such a reflection, it's real, it's valid, it is the shared heartbeat of our time. But now, we arrive at the most important question. It is not, how do we stop the coming storm? Because so much of that is beyond the control of any single one of us. The truly vital question is this: how do we build a house strong enough to stand firm in any storm? The answer, my friends, begins with a simple yet profound action, a prayer for peace. Now, when I say that, I want you to set aside any preconceived notions you might have about that word. We are not talking about a passive wish whispered into the void, hoping that some external force will intervene. No. The prayer we are speaking of today is an act of construction. It is the conscious, deliberate work of building an inner shelter. Imagine the eye of a hurricane. All around it, winds are raging with unimaginable destructive force. But in the very center, there is a space of profound calm and stillness. This is the goal. The storm outside may continue to rage, the news may continue to blare, the world may continue to turn in its frantic way, but you can build that still point within yourself. You can become the eye of your own storm. Think of it as being the lighthouse on a rocky shore. The lighthouse doesn't stop the waves from crashing or the fog from rolling in. Its job is to stand tall, to keep its own light burning brightly, offering a fixed point of guidance in the darkness. This is the kind of strength we seek to cultivate. It's the strength of an old oak tree whose roots run so deep that while it may bend in the fiercest of winds, it refuses to break. This inner shelter, this still point, this lighthouse of the soul, it is not something you are given, it is something you build, one intentional thought, one quiet moment, one conscious breath at a time. And that is what a prayer for peace truly island. It is the blueprint, the hammer, and the nails for constructing that sacred, unshakable space within you. It is the first and most essential step in preparing for whatever lies ahead. Redefining prayer, beyond dogma into intention. To truly embrace this idea, we must first gently unpack the word prayer itself. For many, that word comes with a lot of baggage. It might be tied to a specific religion, a specific set of rules, or a childhood memory of kneeling in a quiet building. For others, it might feel alien, a word that belongs to a world they are not a part of. I want to invite you, just for our time together here, to set all of that aside. The prayer we are exploring is not confined within the walls of any church, temple, or mosque. It belongs to humanity. It is a universal tool, as ancient as our own consciousness. It requires no belief in any particular deity or doctrine. It only requires a belief in the power of your own focused attention. Let's redefine it. Let's strip it down to its most essential form. Prayer, in this context, is simply the act of intentionally directing your inner energy. It is the art of consciously choosing what you place at the center of your awareness. Think of your mind as a garden. If left untended, weeds of anxiety, fear, and distraction will naturally grow. A prayer is the act of tending that garden. It is the moment you decide, with clear intention, to pull a weed and plant a flower in its place, a flower of peace, of clarity, of gratitude, of strength. So, prayer, in its purest form, is not a plea sent to an outside force, hoping for intervention. It is a dialogue with the deepest, wisest part of ourselves. It's the moment we pause the external chatter and listen to that still, small voice within. This practice can take on countless forms, as unique as each one of us. It doesn't need formal words or a specific posture. Let's look at just a few of its most accessible dialects. First, there is prayer as meditation. This is the prayer of stillness. In this form, you aren't asking for anything at all. You are simply creating a space to be. The modern mind is a relentlessly noisy place, a constant storm of to-do lists, worries, and regrets. The prayer of meditation is the simple, radical act of sitting down in the middle of that storm and just listening. You watch the thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky, without judgment, without clinging to them. The Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught the power of this simple mindfulness. This practice is a prayer because its underlying intention is to find the quiet space that exists between our thoughts. It is a prayer for clarity, a prayer to remember that you are not your anxieties, you are the calm, quiet observer watching them pass. Then there is prayer as focused intention. This is the prayer of direction. It is a more active practice, perfect for the beginning of a day. Before the world has a chance to tell you who you should be or what you should worry about, you take a moment to tell yourself what you intend to be. It can be as simple as closing your eyes for 60 seconds after you wake up and setting a single, clear intention. Today, my intention is to be patient with my family. Or, today, I will listen more than I speak. Or, today, I will look for the good in a difficult situation. The great Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about focusing only on what we can control: our own thoughts, judgments, and actions. This practice is a prayer that aligns your energy with that principle. You are not asking for the world to be different. You are making a conscious commitment to be different in the world. You are setting your inner compass for the day ahead. There is also prayer as communing with nature. This is the prayer of connection. In a world that can often feel isolating and artificial, surrounded by concrete and screens, this is one of the most powerful ways to recalibrate. It requires no words. The prayer happens when you intentionally step outside and decide to be present. It's the feeling of the sun on your skin. It's the act of consciously listening to the sound of the wind in the trees. It's looking closely at the intricate design of a single leaf or feeling the solid earth beneath your feet. In these moments, something inside us remembers that we are part of something vast, ancient, and beautiful. Our personal anxieties shrink in perspective. This is a prayer of remembering, a silent dialogue with the living world that reminds us we are not alone. And finally, there is prayer as the practice of gratitude. This is the prayer of reception. It is perhaps the most transformative practice of all. Our brains are hardwired to notice threats and problems. It's a survival mechanism, but this means we often overlook the incredible abundance of good that coexists with the difficult. The prayer of gratitude is the conscious act of rewiring that tendency. It is the simple intention, perhaps at the end of the day, to identify 3 things you are genuinely thankful for. They don't have to be monumental. The taste of your morning coffee, a kind word from a stranger, the fact that your body is breathing without you having to think about it. This practice doesn't ignore the hardships of life, not at all. Instead, it builds an inner reservoir of strength and resilience. It reminds you that even on the hardest days, there are still sources of light. It is a prayer that shifts your entire perspective from a state of lack to a state of quiet abundance. Stillness, direction, connection, and reception. These are just 4 dialects of a universal language, the language of intention. The form is not what matters. What matters is the sincere desire to tend to your inner world. Because true peace, the kind that can withstand any prophecy, is never found out there. It is, and always has been, an inside job. The first prayer for protection. So, let's begin the practical work. With our broader understanding of what prayer can be, we can now forge our first tool, our first active prayer for protection. This one is perhaps the most essential for our modern age. It is not designed to protect our bodies or our homes, but something far more vulnerable, our minds. We will call it the shield of clarity, and its purpose is to protect us from the relentless noise of the world. Think for a moment about the environment your mind lives in every day. From the moment we wake up, we are submerged in a flood of information unlike anything in human history. It comes from our televisions, our radios, our social media feeds, our 24 divided by 7 news alerts. It is an ocean of data, opinions, arguments, and advertisements. And while some of it is useful and nourishing, a vast portion of it is simply noise. This isn't just a neutral observation, it has a profound effect on our inner peace. There's a concept in our digital age called information hygiene, which is a wonderful way to think about it. Just as we wouldn't drink from a polluted river, we must become more conscious about the information we allow to flow into our minds, because much of the noise we consume is not designed to inform us. It is designed, very specifically, to provoke us. It's engineered to make us feel angry, frightened, or outraged, because those strong emotions are what keep us hooked, watching, clicking, and scrolling. This constant state of low-grade agitation drains our energy. It makes us more reactive, more anxious, and more divided from one another. We find ourselves forming strong opinions about things we barely understand, and feeling a sense of dread or anger that we carry with us throughout the day. Without a defense, our mind becomes a battlefield for other people's agendas. The shield of clarity is our defense. It is our act of reclaiming sovereignty over our own attention. This is not about becoming ignorant or uninformed. It is not about sticking your head in the sand. In fact, it's the very opposite. It is about becoming a conscious, discerning consumer of information. It is the decision to stop letting the fire hose of the world's noise blast you indiscriminately, and instead to calmly and intentionally choose what you allow into your inner world. So, how do we build and use this shield? It begins with a simple daily practice, a prayer of intention. The ideal time to do this is in the morning, in that precious quiet space after you wake, but before you engage with the world. Before you pick up your phone, before you turn on the television, this is your moment to fortify your mind for the day ahead. I invite you to try this. Tomorrow morning, find just 2 minutes for yourself. You can be sitting on the edge of your bed or in a favorite chair. You can close your eyes or simply lower your gaze. Take one deep, conscious breath, and then, silently or out loud, set your intention with these 3 simple petitions. This is the prayer. The first part is, today, I pray for the clarity to distinguish between information and noise. Let's sit with that. What does it mean? Information is something that nourishes your understanding. It adds context. It's thoughtful, balanced, and helps you see the world more clearly. Noise, on the other hand, just fills space. It's repetitive, sensational, and often designed to confuse you or stir up your emotions without adding any real understanding. When you set this intention, you are priming your mind to be a better filter. Throughout the day, when you encounter a headline or a story, a part of you will now be quietly asking, is this truly informing me, or is this just noise? This simple question is the first layer of your shield. The second part is, today, I pray for the calmness to not get swept away by manufactured emotions. This is a crucial insight. So much of our media landscape runs on an economy of outrage. Fear sells, anger gets clicks. These emotions are often manufactured and amplified on purpose. When you pray for calmness, you are not praying to be numb or unfeeling. You are praying for the wisdom to recognize when your emotions are being intentionally manipulated. you begin to see the mechanism. You'll read a provocative headline, and instead of instantly feeling anger, a wiser part of you will observe, "Ah, this is designed to make me angry." This act of observation creates a space between the stimulus and your reaction. In that space, you find your freedom. You can choose not to be a puppet to someone else's emotional agenda. This is the second layer of your shield. And the third part is, today, I pray to seek understanding instead of just seeking validation. This is the deepest and perhaps most challenging part of the practice. It's human nature to seek out information that confirms what we already believe. This is called confirmation bias, and it feels comfortable, it feels validating, but it keeps us trapped in our own echo chambers and deepens the divisions between us. To seek true understanding is an act of intellectual humility and courage. It means being open to perspectives that challenge our own. It means listening to learn, not just to argue. When you set this intention, you are committing to a higher goal. You are telling yourself that you are more interested in what is true than in what is comfortable. It transforms your relationship with information from one of combat to one of curiosity. This is the strong, resilient core of your shield. Clarity over noise, calmness over manufactured outrage, understanding over validation. That is the prayer. It is a simple, three-part intention, but when practiced daily, it becomes a powerful shield. It won't stop the noise of the world from reaching your ears, but it will prevent it from penetrating your soul. It empowers you to walk through the storm of modern information, not as a victim, but as a calm, conscious, and centered observer. You become the guardian at the gate of your own mind, and there is no greater protection than that. The second prayer for protection. If our first prayer, the shield of clarity, was designed to protect the mind, then our second prayer is for the protection of the heart. For in our deeply divided world, the human heart is under a different kind of assault. It's an assault of hardening, of being encouraged every day to close itself off, to build walls, to choose a side and armor itself against the other. We are living in what feels like a great pandemic of division. It spreads through our political discourse, our social media feeds, and sometimes even across our own dinner tables. The symptoms are suspicion, judgment, and a creeping coldness towards those who don't think, vote, or live the way we do. Over time, this constant exposure can cause our hearts to become calloused. Our empathy, which is our most beautiful and human quality, begins to shrink. We forget that behind the labels we assign to people, the opposition, the enemy, the other side, there is a human being, with a story as complex and a heart as fragile as our own. This hardening of the heart is a deep spiritual sickness, and it is exhausting. Carrying around anger, resentment, and judgment is a heavy burden. It depletes our energy and robs us of our joy. Our second prayer for protection is the antidote. We will call it the wellspring of compassion. A wellspring is a source of water that never runs dry. It bubbles up from deep within the earth. This prayer is not about forcing yourself to feel something you don't. It is about gently clearing away the debris that is blocking the natural spring of compassion that already exists within you. It is a prayer to protect your heart from bitterness and to keep it open, soft, and alive. The practice itself is inspired by ancient traditions like the Buddhist practice of metta or loving-kindness meditation. But its truth is universal. It's a quiet, internal exercise in expanding your circle of care. You can do this anytime, anywhere you have a few moments of quiet, while you're waiting in line, sitting in traffic, or just before you fall asleep. It begins, as all good things do, close to home. Start by bringing to mind someone you love easily and without complication. It could be a child, a spouse, a dear friend, even a beloved pet. Hold their image in your mind. Don't just see their face. Feel their presence. Feel the warmth and affection you have for them, and then, silently, offer them these simple, universal wishes. You can use your own words, but the essence is this: may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be happy, may you live with ease. Feel the sincerity of these wishes as you send them. This first step is simple. It's like warming up a cold muscle. You are activating the natural capacity of your heart to care. Now, for the second step. Keep that feeling of warmth alive, and now, bring yourself to mind. This can sometimes be the hardest part for many of us. We are often our own harshest critics. But just for this moment, extend that same unconditional kindness to yourself. See yourself not with judgment, but with the same gentle affection you would offer a friend, and offer yourself the same wishes. May I be safe, may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I live with ease. Breathe that in. Allow yourself to be worthy of your own compassion. This step is about filling your own well first. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Now, the practice begins to expand. The third step is to bring to mind a neutral person, someone you see in your daily life but don't have strong feelings about one way or another. The mail carrier, the clerk at the grocery store, a neighbor you wave to. Hold their image in your mind, recognize their humanity, and extend the same wishes to them. May you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be happy, may you live with ease. You are now gently stretching your heart's capacity beyond your immediate circle. You are acknowledging the shared humanity in a near stranger. And now, we come to the most important and transformative step, the one that truly protects your heart from the poison of division. Bring to mind someone with whom you have difficulty. It doesn't have to be your greatest enemy. Start small. Someone who annoys you, someone you disagree with politically, someone who has hurt you. This is the moment of true spiritual work, and it is crucial to understand what you are doing here. You are not condoning their actions. You are not saying what they did was okay. You are not forcing yourself to like them. You are simply making a courageous choice to not let their actions fill your heart with hatred. The third prayer for protection. We have now forged a shield to protect the mind and opened a wellspring to protect the heart. But there is one more essential part of our inner shelter that needs fortification. It is our spirit. And the greatest threat to the human spirit in a difficult time is not anger or fear, but despair. Despair is the cold, heavy fog that can roll in and make us feel that nothing matters, that our efforts are pointless, that the darkness is total and the light is gone for good. It is a feeling of overwhelming powerlessness. When we look at the scale of the world's problems, the vast, complex machinery of politics, economics, and climate, it is easy to feel small and helpless. This feeling, if left unchecked, can corrode our will to even try. It is the silent surrender of the soul. Our third and final prayer for protection is the most powerful antidote to this spiritual exhaustion. We will call it the anchor of gratitude. Now, I know that in the face of immense global challenges, talking about gratitude can sometimes sound naive or out of touch. It can feel like being told to admire the flowers while the house is on fire. But that is a profound misunderstanding of what gratitude really is. True gratitude is not about ignoring the darkness. It's not a denial of pain or injustice. In fact, it is the very opposite. Gratitude is an act of courageous defiance. It is the conscious decision that you will not let the darkness have the final word. It is the act of intentionally searching for and holding on to the evidence of goodness, beauty, and grace that continues to exist, stubbornly and beautifully, even alongside the suffering. Think of it this way. When a ship is caught in a raging storm, its survival depends on its anchor. The anchor doesn't stop the storm. It doesn't calm the waves or silence the wind. What the anchor does is hold the ship fast to the solid ground beneath the turbulent surface. It prevents the ship from being helplessly swept away into the abyss. Gratitude is our spiritual anchor. The storm of bad news, of conflict, of anxiety is the turbulent surface. But beneath that surface, there is always a solid ground of reality. The reality of a sun that continues to rise, the reality of human kindness that continues to show up in small, uncelebrated ways, the reality of the simple, reliable goodness of life. The practice of gratitude is the act of intentionally lowering your anchor to connect with that solid ground every single day. The field of positive psychology has done remarkable research on this. Study after study has shown that a regular gratitude practice can significantly reduce stress, improve sleep, increase feelings of happiness, and, most importantly, build our resilience, our ability to bounce back from adversity. It literally rewires our brains. Our minds have what scientists call a negativity bias. For evolutionary reasons, we are hardwired to notice threats, problems, and dangers more than we notice the good. Practicing gratitude is a conscious and scientifically backed way to counteract that bias. So, how do we practice this? Like our other prayers, it is simple, practical, and requires no special equipment, only your attention. The most effective time for this practice is at the end of the day. It becomes a way of closing the door on the anxieties of the day and grounding yourself in peace before you sleep. Tonight, before you turn out the light, I invite you to try this. Just for a minute or two, let the day wash over you in your memory, and your only task is to find 3 specific things, no matter how small, for which you can feel a genuine sense of gratitude. The key here is specific. A general, "I'm grateful for my family" is nice, but it doesn't have the same power as "I'm grateful for the way my spouse made me laugh today when they told that silly joke," or "I'm grateful for the 5 minutes I had this morning to just sit and drink my coffee in silence." Maybe it was the taste of a fresh piece of fruit. Maybe it was a call or a text from an old friend that came at just the right moment. Maybe it was the relief of finishing a difficult task at work. Maybe it was simply the feeling of the warm water in the shower or the comfort of your own bed. Don't judge what comes up. Nothing is too small or too insignificant. The goal is not to find monumental blessings. The goal is to train your attention to notice the ordinary, everyday grace that is always present but so often overlooked. Find your 3 things. Hold each one in your mind for a moment, and for each one, just say a silent, heartfelt, "Thank you." That's it. That is the entire practice. Living the prayer. Crafting peace in a turbulent world. In the last part of our journey, we learned the gentle, daily work of tending to our inner garden. We learned how to raise the shield of clarity, how to open the wellspring of compassion, and how to lower the anchor of gratitude. We have cultivated a space of inner peace. But a garden, no matter how beautiful, is not a fortress meant for hiding. Its true purpose is not to be an escape from the world, but a place to cultivate strength for the world. And so, the time has come to open the gate. The work we have done within ourselves was never meant to end there. It was the necessary preparation. It was the forging of the tools and the filling of the well. Now, we must learn how to carry what we have cultivated beyond the garden walls. We must learn how to step out into the turbulent world, not leading with our fear, but leading with our peace. For the ultimate purpose of inner peace is not just our own comfort, but our compassionate and courageous engagement with the life that awaits us on the other side of the gate. The true armor, redefining daily protection. As we step beyond the garden walls, we must confront the very idea that brought us here, a daily prayer for protection. But what are we truly asking to be protected from? And what does real protection look like in the complex world of the 21st century? I think for many of us, our deepest, most primal idea of protection is a kind of magic shield. It's the hope that if we are good, or if we pray correctly, we can build a bubble around ourselves and our loved ones, a space where hardship, pain, and loss cannot enter. This is a deeply human desire, but if we are honest with ourselves, it is also an illusion. Life is, by its very nature, a landscape of unpredictable weather. There will be sunshine, but there will also inevitably be storms. And so, we must mature our understanding of protection. We must distinguish between the desire for safety and the cultivation of resilience. Safety is the desire for a calm sea. It's the hope that the waves will never rise, that the winds will never blow. It is a longing for external conditions to be perfect and predictable. But as we know, that is a hope that life rarely fulfills. Resilience, on the other hand, is the skill of a master sailor. The resilient person does not pray for the storm to pass. They have cultivated the inner strength, the wisdom, and the flexibility to navigate their ship through the storm. Their confidence does not come from the calmness of the sea, but from the quality of their seamanship. This is the true nature of spiritual protection. It is not immunity from hardship, it is the unwavering ability to handle hardship without losing your way. But when you do this consistently, night after night, a slow and beautiful transformation begins to occur. You start to go through your days with your gratitude antenna up. You begin to actively look for things you'll be able to count later that night. You start noticing the kindness of the stranger who held the door for you, the beauty of the clouds in the afternoon sky, the satisfaction of a task well done. This practice doesn't make the problems of the world disappear, but it builds an undeniable, experiential case that the world is not only its problems. It provides the evidence you need to fight back against the creeping fog of despair. It slowly, steadily, and powerfully trains your mind to see the whole picture. And so, you will begin to see not just the cracks in the wall, but also the stubborn, beautiful wildflowers that are growing right through them. That is the anchor of gratitude. It is the prayer that ensures your spirit will never be swept away. And so, we have forged these three essential tools for our inner shelter. The shield of clarity to guard the mind, the wellspring of compassion to protect the heart, and the anchor of gratitude to secure the spirit. But the power of these tools is not found in simply knowing they exist. Their magic is unlocked not in one grand heroic effort, but in the quiet, humble consistency of picking them up each day, even for just a few moments. Inner peace is not a destination you arrive at one day. It is a garden that needs tending every single day. The shield of clarity, the wellspring of compassion, and the anchor of gratitude, these are your tools for that gentle work. We believe that everyone has their own unique way of tending their garden. So, what small habit or quiet affirmation helps you find stillness each day? What is the personal practice that keeps you grounded? Please share your own prayer, your own method for finding peace in the comments below. Every single story shared is another seed of peace planted in the world, and a light for someone else who may be looking for their own way. How one person's peace can change a room, a home, a community. Now, there may be a quiet question that arises as we do this deep internal work. It's a natural question to ask: is this selfish? In a world with so much real, tangible suffering, is it not a luxury to spend time cultivating an inner garden? Is this just a retreat from the problems of the world? It is a fair question, and the answer is the most hopeful truth I know. The peace you cultivate within yourself is not a treasure you hoard. It is a light that you cannot help but shine. It is, in fact, the greatest and most sustainable gift you have to offer the world. There is a well-documented scientific phenomenon called emotional contagion. It's a fancy term for something we have all experienced. We are social beings, wired for connection. We unconsciously mirror the emotional states of those around us. you know this is true. You've walked into a room where an argument just happened, and you can feel the tension hanging in the air like a thick fog. You've been around a person who is genuinely joyful and found yourself smiling without even knowing why. And you have certainly been in the presence of someone who is deeply, authentically calm and felt the tight knot of your own anxiety begin to loosen. That is the ripple effect. Your inner state is never truly private. It emanates from you. It changes the emotional chemistry of the space you occupy. Let's think about this in our own lives. Imagine a tense business meeting. Everyone is on edge, voices are sharp, and a conflict is brewing. Then, one person speaks. They don't raise their voice. They don't argue. They simply hold their center. They listen calmly. They respond thoughtfully. What happens? Almost always, the temperature in the room drops by 10 degrees. That person's grounded presence gives everyone else permission to take a breath, to step back from the brink. Their inner peace has become a quiet, powerful force in the room. Now, bring that idea into our most sacred space, our homes. A family is a complex ecosystem of emotions. A child comes home upset from school, a spouse is stressed from work, and soon the entire house can be humming with a low-grade, anxious energy. But if one person in that ecosystem has been tending their inner garden, they can become the anchor. Their patience can absorb a child's frustration without escalating it. Their ability to listen calmly can diffuse a marital spat before it even begins. Their presence doesn't magically solve the problems, but it changes the entire environment in which the problems are handled. You may not be able to stop a war in a distant land, but you can absolutely extinguish a small war in your own home with an act of listening. You may not solve global hunger, but you can share a meal with a neighbor. Never underestimate the power of a single ripple of peace, because we can never know how far it will travel. There is an old story that I love. It's about a world that was covered in a profound and total darkness. Everyone stumbled around, lost and afraid, complaining about how dark it was. And in one small town, there was a person who grew tired of cursing the darkness. So, they did a very small, seemingly pointless thing. They lit a single, tiny candle. Now, that one candle did not vanquish the darkness of the world. It didn't even light up the whole town. It just created a small, warm circle of light right where they were standing. But then, a neighbor, seeing that little flicker of light from their window, felt a stir of hope. They thought, I can do that too. And so, they lit their own candle. Then another person saw the two lights, and they lit a third. And so it went, from house to house, from person to person, until the entire town was glowing. And the light spread to the next town, and the next, not because of some great, singular miracle, but because of countless small, individual acts of courage. The peace you cultivate inside your clarity, your compassion, your gratitude that is your candle. The world may seem very dark at times, and your one small flame may feel insignificant, but you have no idea who is watching your light. You have no idea whose own hope is being kindled just by seeing you shine. A genuine smile to a stressed-out cashier, a moment of patient listening for a friend who is struggling, a heartfelt thank you to the person who cleans your office. These are not small things. These are the ripples. These are the flames. This is how the world is healed, not all at once, but one quiet, peaceful interaction at a time. Your inner work is the most important community service you will ever perform. The Crossroads of Crisis, a lesson on modern human nature. This brings us, finally, to the largest question of all. It's a question that has been asked by poets, philosophers, and prophets for millennia. What is the true nature of humanity? Are we fundamentally good, or are we fundamentally flawed? Perhaps the prophecies, the crises, the great trials of history are not punishments or endings. Perhaps they are simply crucibles. A crucible is a vessel used in chemistry to heat substances to very high temperatures. It is a place of intense pressure, designed to burn away impurities and reveal the true essence of what is inside. Our modern world, with all its pressures and anxieties, is such a crucible. And times of crisis, whether they are personal or global, act as the heat. They turn up the temperature on the human soul. And in that intense heat, our true nature is both revealed and forged. Look back through the pages of history. In every great trial, every war, every plague, every natural disaster, you will see the full, contradictory spectrum of human nature on display. You will find stories of unimaginable selfishness, of hoarding, of fear turning neighbors into enemies. The crisis reveals the capacity for darkness that lies within the human heart. But that is never the only story. In those very same moments of crisis, you will always find stories of breathtaking courage and sacrifice. You will find the doctors and nurses who run towards the danger, not away from it. You will find the ordinary citizens who risk their own lives to shelter a stranger. You will find communities that band together, sharing their last resources with a generosity that would seem impossible in ordinary times. The crisis reveals the boundless capacity for light that also lies within the human heart. So, which one is our true nature? The darkness or the light? Perhaps the prophecy of a darkest trial was never about an external event destined to happen to us. Perhaps that trial is the one that takes place every single day, inside the heart of every single human being. It is the moment-by-moment choice we all face. In this conversation, will I build a wall or will I build a bridge? In this moment of scarcity, will I hoard my fear or will I share my hope? In this disagreement, will I seek to win or will I seek to understand? Human nature is not a fixed, predetermined thing. It is not a noun. It is a verb. It is a constant act of choosing. It is a question that each of us is asked every day of our lives. And our life itself is the answer. Our journey together through prophecy, fear, and prayer is now coming to a close. But the real journey, the one of living a life of peace and purpose in this world, is just beginning for each of us. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your precious time to listen and reflect with me. If you are still here with me, listening to these final words, would you do me a small favor? Please leave a comment below with the simple phrase, "I am still here." It helps me to know that I've had true companions on this entire journey. Your presence is the greatest encouragement there is to continue this work of sharing meaningful stories. And finally, please remember this. The most important prophecy is not written in any ancient book. It is being written every single day by your own courageous and compassionate choices. May you always find your peace, even in the heart of the storm, and may you be well,